Good? Okay, Gevach, everybody. I'm sorry. I always lose my voice when I yell. Anyway, so everybody's here because they're too tired to get back to their rooms or go swimming. So, and there's no refreshments out, so I guess we might as well just join together in here for a few ideas. You know, there's this argument that people encounter all the time. Yeah. How do I know there's a God? So my response is always, do you believe in God? Most people say, yes. I said, that's it. You know, good. He says, but what if somebody says, I'm not really worried about that? Yeah. These are the arguments. And it's an amazing sort of a thing. I'm in the field a long time. And you have people say things like, now you have to remember, I used to run an organization called NCSY in Long Island. High school kids. And I'd have a 9th, 10th grader, 14, 15 years old. I'd say to me, I'm an atheist. I'd say, you're an atheist? You know there's no God? I said, that's right, there's no God. I said, well, have you ever studied classical philosophy? I don't know, Plato, Aristotle? No. Medieval philosophy, Thomas Aquinas? No. Modern philosophy, Hegel? No. Jewish philosophy, Lahavdil, Maimonides, Yehuda Levi? No. Did you ever study Talmud? No. Did you ever read the Bible? Not the whole thing. One person read the review notes, you know, on the Old Testament. I didn't even know there were those. I said, then you'll forgive me, you're not an atheist, you're an idiot. Would you develop your theology on the school bus one day looking out the window? Is there a God? Nope. In fact, I'm positive, I'm an atheist. I don't even have a question. And yet, people take these people seriously. I'll get a call from a mashgiach in a yeshiva. I have a boy, he's having hashkafa problems. I said, really? He doesn't know if there's an Eibishter. I said, he gets up late. Yeah. He hangs out at night. Yeah. He's not really matzliach in his learning. I said, yeah. I said, he has problems, they're not hashkafic. Tell me he gets up, he learns a whole day, and you find him in the base medrash at 2 o'clock in the morning with a copy of Spinoza. You know what I mean? That's someone who's having hashkafa problems. It's just every kid knows he can go, maybe there's no God, and everyone goes, whoa, he's an atheist. Yeah, an atheist. An atheist means that you know something. You can't deny something without knowing anything. It's just called being ignorant. But we get bent out of shape. We hear this, you know? So we wouldn't do this in any other field. Person walks into astrophysics, conference, and I think Einstein was wrong. Says, really? Yeah, time is relative. I have relatives that never on time. Okay, thanks for coming, you know? I'm going to take this guy seriously? No, what difference does it make? But when it comes to this, all of a sudden everybody's an expert. I heard a story years ago. I don't know if it's true. I'm not Pesach Krohn. Yeah, and he checks out all his stories. I don't. It was about a science and religion conference. And apparently Rabbi Refson from the Yerushalayim was there. And there was a major astronomer who was speaking. And he says, I don't know that much about religion, but I think it could be summed up as love thy neighbor as thyself, and don't do unto others as you wouldn't have them do unto you, and thank you very much. So Refson gets up and he says, I don't know that much about astronomy, but I think it could be summed up as twinkle, twinkle, little star. He looks at me and says, you're a man of science. How could you say I don't know anything about a subject and then say what it is? Just say, I don't know anything about religion. I'm looking forward to the theologians here to explain it to me. How could you possibly have an opinion on something you don't know anything about? But this is what happens. Everyone has a right to say, I don't believe in God. Yeah. And people's ability to disbelieve, it defies reason. Yeah? Moshe tells Aaron, hit the water, and all the water in Egypt becomes blood. In the rivers, in the lakes, in the streams, in the kalim, everything turns into blood. And then the magicians of Paro say, that's not a big deal, we could do that too. And they turn the water into blood. So the obvious question is, if Aaron turned all the water into blood, where did they get any water from? So the Chazal say the only way the Egyptians had water is if they bought it from the Jews. So that makes a dramatically different scene. Aaron hits the water and all the water turns into blood. The magicians say, that's nothing. Here, Aaron, here's $20, give me some water. Watch this, poof, I turned it into blood. Oh yeah, you're as powerful as I am. So how come I have your $20? It doesn't matter, you turn water into blood, you turn water into blood, that's good enough. That's all I need. Yeah? This is the ability to rationalize something you don't want to see. You ignore it. So, here's the way that it's often put. I don't know if you ever got this. I've heard this over the years. If God would make a miracle for me, I would believe him. I want to see a miracle. Noach Weinberg used to say, people would tell me I'm an atheist. And I say, did you ever see a miracle? They say, yes. Now, how's that possible? Right? But that's the argument. God showed me let him split the Red Sea in my backyard. You know? Let me see a miracle. So I used to answer this until I realized that the argument is totally not true. And I'll tell you how I knew. I moved to Israel in 1988. My parents assumed it was a passing phase. I would grow out of it. But I went for a while, came with 4 children, had a 5th while I was there. And then in the summer of 1990, Iraq invaded the Arab country of Kuwait. And George Bush, who was president at the time, realized this was a very serious situation because he was doing poorly in the polls, and there's nothing like a good war to get everybody on board. So he got on the radio and he said, if Saddam Hussein does not pull out of Kuwait, we will be forced to use military options. So Saddam says, he thinks my name is Saddam. I don't think he even knows who Iraq is. Nah, I'll call his bluff. So he lines up all the foreigners, ties them to national security positions, and says, go ahead and bomb them. It's a good way to win over world support. He gets on television with a little beret and his mustache. He's like some character out of a bad movie. And he starts yelling at some little English kid who's sitting there crying. It was just horrible. So George Bush said, okay, I can't mess this up. And he puts together the largest coalition in world history. He gets Russia, he gets China, he gets Syria, he gets Israel, he gets Germany, Europe, South America, North America, everybody's on board. The only one who's on Saddam's side is Yemen. And I'm sure that was his ace in the hole, because Yemen promised to send both camels. So, you know, that should really stand up. So finally Saddam Hussein said, if you attack me, I'll bomb Israel. And Bush says, go ahead, we dare you. Go ahead and bomb Israel. And Israel says, hey, we're okay with this. We weren't using Kuwait anyway. You can keep it, you know? And he says, no, we're going to bomb Israel. Okay, listen, I live in Israel. They're always threatening to bomb us. It's not a Tuesday if someone's not threatening to blow us up, you know? Fine, we don't take it too seriously. So finally, George Bush sets a deadline. Yeah. January 15th, if they don't pull out, we're going to start military action. So, November, my daughter comes home. She says it was so funny in school. We dressed up like a fox. My wife said, did you hear that? They dressed up like a fox. I said, so? I dressed up like a tree in the Tu B'Shvat play. What are you worried about? She says, explain to Abba what a fox looks like. He says, oh, he put on this funny mask with a long nose. This is a gas mask. They're practicing putting on gas masks. I said, well, they don't do anything in school anyway. Mostly they just decorate the front of their machbarot, you know. Maybe this is actually a marketable skill. Who cares? You don't think Saddam is going to attack Israel? Everybody in the world is there. Fine. Comes December, people are starting to get nervous. So General Ben Nun, who at the time was the head of the Air Force, gets on the television. Typical Israeli military person, you know, he's got the sunglasses, shirt open, big hairy chest, lots of medals, you know, cigarette dangling from his mouth, an Arab under his arm, you know. Then you wonder why we don't get world support, you know. I made Aliyah, and back then they were supposed to draft you after 3 years. And 3 years came by and they never drafted me. So I went down to the recruitment center. I said, Shalom, Bati Bisho Tzava. They said, that's funny, just go home. I said, no, I'm here to serve my country. They said, sir, you have the military profile of a terrorist victim. Just go home. I said, no, I can do something for the country that no one else can. They said, what's that? Make me a military spokesman. When they see me in a uniform, they'll feel so bad for this country, I'll get you international support. But they didn't listen. I would have really been able to tip the balance of power in the Middle East. Fine. They sent me home, so he's sitting there in front of a bunch of F-16s. He says, if Saddam tries anything, we will blow up Baghdad. And there are 4 guys behind him, and they all go, okay, well, we were very reassured. Yeah, fine. So, about a week later, the Jerusalem Post puts out a map of the different sections of Iraq. And he says, don't worry, we know where the Scud missiles are. They're all in H2 and H3, and they showed us exactly where they were. And I remember thinking at the time that maybe it was a mistake to publish this map, because it could be Saddam has a subscription to the Jerusalem Post, and he might decide to move some of them to, I don't know, H1 and H4, you know? But nobody was worried because we were told that we know where all the Scud missiles are and we're safe. Now it's January. Israelis are starting to panic. How do you know they're starting to panic? They buy all the tomatoes. I don't know what it is with Israeli and tomatoes. They get crazy with tomatoes, you know. First thing when they sense a national crisis, they buy up all the tomatoes, milk and bread. Yeah, okay. So they're getting nervous. So they start distributing poison gas equipment. That's when I get the first call from my mother. That's it, come home. I've had enough of this. Bring me my grandchildren back here. Now at the time I was in my 30s, and I was a rabbi of some repute. I said, come on Mom, can't I stay a little longer? No, you come home right now. I said, Mom, what are you worried about? We know all the missiles are, they're in H2 and H3. Don't mention this to any Iraqis you see. But if anything happens, we'll blow them up. Didn't you see Ben Nun in front of the planes? He says, aren't you nervous that they're distributing poison gas equipment? I said, shouldn't I be nervous if they weren't? That confused her, yeah. So it was a typical Jerusalem evening. We went down for gas masks and pizza. And I come in with my children, and I give them my Tudat Zehut, and there's always something wrong on your Tudat Zehut. An Israeli Pakid has not done his job if he doesn't make you come back 3 times. Yeah, the last time it's with the witch's broomstick. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. So I come in, they say, there's something wrong. Now, I'd been in Israel long enough. I know how things work there now. Yeah, I start screaming. Now, I had to learn this because this doesn't come naturally to me. I remember when I opened my first bank account in Long Island. I went into the bank and they said, oh, please go to Mrs. Smith. And I said, I want to open a bank account. They said, oh, isn't that nice? Here's a toaster. You know, let's pick out which types of checks you want. Would you like mountains? Would you like seascapes? Would you like horses? You know, if you pick it out, they say, would you like a large initial of your last name? You know, sure. What check would you like it to start at? You get to pick whichever number check it should start. Oh, okay. Where'd you get a check holder? Fine. I went to open my first Israeli bank account, and they told me go to this guy who's sitting there reading the paper, smoking under the no smoking sign. And I said, Ani rotzeh leftoach cheshbon. He says, Zelo po. I said, Eifo. He said, Lamata. So I go downstairs, and I wait online, window, until finally they tell me, no, it was him. He just didn't want to do it. He did not want to open my bank account. So I get back up. There's a row of like 3 people in front of me. And he looks at me and says, Ma ta rotzeh? I said, Ani rotzeh leftoach cheshbon. He says, now, for a moment I said, oh, okay, I'll take the 2 buses back to Har Nof, come back after 4 o'clock, and then wait online again to try to open my account. Or I could employ the skills that I learned from my years running junior NCSY, which was the division for the 10 to 13-year-olds, and I looked at him with my meanest face and said, Ani rotzeh leftoach cheshbon. He said, Beseder. That's how it works. I don't know why it works that way. Sfardim are very big on making brisim. It's very important to them. I have a friend of mine who is Sfardi. He says his grandfather said, Ben bat lo chashuv, ha'ikar sheyeh brit. You know what I mean? That's it. So he had 4 girls. The nurse comes out and says, congratulations, you had a baby girl. Goes, what? I already have 4 girls. I have to make a brit. I want a name for my father. I start screaming. She gets nervous. She goes in the back. She comes back and says, I made a mistake. You had a boy. He says, you see, you don't get anything in this country unless you yell. I said, fine. Don't give me any gas mask. We'll all die. We'll die in a gas attack. That's okay. My son says, we're going to die? I said, no, this is Israel. You got to do this here, you know. So they said, okay, Beseder. So they give me 2 adult gas masks, 2 children gas masks, and 2 gas cribs, mamad. Now, in case you've never seen them, they're about, this long, this wide, made out of plastic. You unroll it, stick the baby in, and roll it up. Mommy. I said, can he breathe in there? They said, we're pretty sure. I said, this looks pretty nerve-wracking. He says, no. We know where all the Scud missiles are. They're in H2 and H3. Don't mention that to any Iraqis. But we're going to go in and blow them all up. But just in case one of them gets through and has a poison, a gas, a warhead, and hits Har Nof, you know, we want you to be protected. But you don't have to worry, because we live on a mountain and the gas is heavy and it sinks to the bottom of the mountain. I live at the bottom of the mountain. Don't worry, you don't have to worry. You know, but just to be on the safe side, you want to take one of your rooms and cover the window in plastic, and then tape up the door and have a towel sitting in water and baking soda to put at the bottom. Nothing to worry about. No, nothing to worry about. Oh, by the way, I'm giving everybody an anti-nerve gas shot. There's one inside a little crib for the baby. There's a glove, reach in and you can inject them. Not that there's anything to worry about, but just to be on the safe side. Now this is new to me. I never really had been threatened with poison gas before, so it was like, fine. So we take it all home. The week before, people are starting to get nervous. Now it's getting serious. Right? It's already January 6th, January 7th. Someone asked Shlomo Zalman Auerbach what's going to be, and he said, I'm not a Navi, but I promise you the following. June 15th is the deadline. On June 16th, we're going to say Hallel, and this year we're going to eat meat on Tisha B'Av. Well, the news spread like wildfire until somebody realized January 16th is Rosh Chodesh. We always say Hallel. And that year, Tisha B'Av came out on Shabbos. So, guess he decided to have a little fun at our expense. But anyway, so people are getting nervous. My mother calls again and says, "That's it, come home." I said, "Mom, you don't have to worry. I've got my poison gas equipment. I've got a piece of plastic on the window. And we know where all the scuds are, so everything's fine." Good. Comes January 15th, the war starts. And listen to the radio. Sure enough, the Americans blew up all the Scud missiles because they were in H2 and H3, because they have a subscription to the Jerusalem Post. They knew where they all were, and they blew up all the missiles, and everything's over. And that was the end of the war. January 16th, it was a Thursday night. My wife wakes me up, she says, "I think I hear a siren." Do you ever hear an air raid siren? It's not like an opinion. So it turns out that the guy in Harnov in charge of the siren fell asleep. We were hearing it from Beit Zayit. So it's on the other side of the mountain. I stick my head out the window. I said, "It's an ambulance, go to sleep." My wife says to me, "No, this might be a missile attack." might be a missile attack. Let's turn on the radio. So who's on the radio in the middle of the night? The disc jockey, Dr. Love. Now, I want you to appreciate this, because I'm a news junkie. When I lived here in, America, I was always listening to WCBS News Radio 88, where there were only 3 stories and they kept repeating them over and over again. And it was always very dramatic. A fire in the Bronx. We turned to our correspondents in the Bronx. What's happening there? Well, a 3-alarm fire has gutted a building in the Bronx, and the fire department is looking into that. Right? That's it. Back and forth, and then the traffic and weather. Yeah. I used to listen to it even though I was at home. I wasn't driving anywhere. The weather doesn't change that often, but you listen because you're always afraid you're going to miss something. I was only once in an actual emergency. Yeah, it was in the 1980s. There was a hurricane called Hurricane Gloria, hit New York just before Sukkot. Blew down all the sukkahs of those foolish people who put it up early. People think I put up my sukkah last minute because I'm a procrastinator. I'm not. There might be a hurricane. But most people aren't thinking like I am. So the hurricane came, so they switched to emergency broadcasting. Every newsman lives for this. Here we are at Hurricane Headquarters, standing by with a report. We turn to our correspondent in Long Island. What's happening out there? I'm here in Long Island in a public school which is serving as an evacuation center, and I'm speaking to Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith, what is the situation? We're very nervous. And what are you doing? We're waiting for the hurricane. Do you have anything you want to say? Thank goodness the Red Cross brought us coffee and donuts. Very good, back to Hurricane Headquarters. Okay, now we turn to Washington. People are standing by. The president is prepared to issue a statement as soon as the hurricane hits, but we're guaranteed that the national government will give us all the support that we need. Back to Hurricane Headquarters. All right, let's go to the Weather Center. Oh, this is definitely a hurricane, Bob. We're looking at winds of up to... Nothing happened. There was no news, but it was so exciting. They were cutting here and going there, and it was like... Could you imagine if New York City was under missile attack? They would bring back Edward R. Murrow from the dead. This would be the story of the century. So I'm in my house, and there might be a missile attack. So I turn on, and there's Dr. Love. No emergency broadcasting. Shalom. Yesh azaka. There's a siren. Go to your sealed rooms. Put on your masks. V'achshav muzika. Na 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 na. And they start playing music. Now I'm half asleep. I said to my wife, I said, "You see, there's nothing going on. They're playing music." My wife said, "They said go to the sealed room and put on your mask." I said, "They don't announce that in between songs. This would be a war, yeah?" So I'm waiting for the music to finish. She goes, Okay, I hope you're all in your sealed rooms. And now more music for the sealed room. I said, oh my gosh, a missile attack. So I wake up all the children. I said, quick, into the sealed room, because they were very excited. I had bought Bumper and Bisley. I put it in the sealed room. I said, you can't have it. It's for the war. You understand? So they were really praying for this attack, So I bring them all in. And we put on the masks. I stick the babies in the little mamad. Mommy, I wrap them up, you know what I mean? My wife puts on a mask. She says, I can't breathe. Now, as it turns out, they forgot to remove the little plastic disc covering the air hole from a number of the masks. Which I don't find that surprising because they bought them from Germany. Now, it seems to me that's the wrong place to buy anti-poison gas equipment. That's just me. So I said, you must be doing something wrong. Give it to me. And I put it on, and he couldn't breathe. But I left it on loose because they said it's not going to work anyway if you have a beard. And I know what I look like without a beard, and I'd rather die. In fact, a friend of mine, his Shiva told everybody you have to cut off your beards. Everybody shaved off their beards. So after the missile attack, he called his Rebbe. His wife answered the phone. He goes, so just checking to make sure everybody's all right. He says, okay. Can I speak to the Rebbe? He says, he'll be with you soon. So let me ask you, did he cut off his beard? He says, no. He says, what? He says, don't worry, he'll tell you himself. In the background, you hear, ah! What's going on? He covered it with electrical tape. That's gotta hurt. Anyway, so we're in the room. The little babies are going, mommy, they're playing music. We're stuck in this room. We don't know what's going on. And finally, Nachman Shai comes on. He was the point man in charge of this war. Nachman Shai had apparently died several years earlier, and no one had the heart to tell him. He was a spokesperson. He had no discernible personality whatsoever. So Dr. Love is interviewing Nachman Shai. Shalom, Nachman. Can we take off the mask? Can we leave the room? No. Don't take off the masks. Don't leave the room. He says, could you tell us what's happening? We're looking for the Scud missiles. Now, a Scud missile is 4 stories tall, travels 7,000 miles an hour, has an explosive, possibly chemical payload. How hard could it be to find? Any Scud missiles here? No? Okay. Hey, you have any Scud missiles? So I figure I know what's going to happen. It's going to crash through the wall of my sealed room, and it won't explode. It'll just be ticking. And I'm going to have to unscrew the cone. And I'm trying to remember, do you cut the blue wire or the red wire? So I say to the kids, does anyone know if you cut the blue wire or the red wire? But they're not listening to me because they're trying to get the Bisley through the little air holes in their masks. So we're stuck in this room and they're not giving us any information. So I remember back then in the middle of the night, you could get Voice of America. I turned to the channel. Dun, 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 dun. This is the Voice of America. And here we are at Gulf War headquarters. I said, okay, now we know where I am, We turned to our correspondent in Washington. What's happening there? President Bush is standing by. He's getting prepared to make a statement to the country as to how the war is proceeding. Back to Gulf War headquarters. Okay, now we turn to our correspondent in Saudi Arabia. I'm over here with an English pilot, Turns Watkins Wilkins. Turns, what do you have to say? We're getting ready to do our job. And what is that? We're going to bomb Baghdad. And anything you want to say? Thank goodness the Red Cross gave us coffee and donuts. I said, okay, I know where I am now, And now we turn to our correspondent in Jerusalem. We are in our sealed rooms wearing our protective equipment. And what is Israeli radio reporting? Nothing. They're just playing this feathery music. Listen. Da, na, 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 na. Okay, back to Gulf War headquarters. They're not telling us anything. We're stuck there. I think they realized they shouldn't have told them we knew where all the Scud missiles were. That might have been a mistake. Now they weren't saying anything. Nothing. They weren't giving the weather report. Nothing. No news. Yeah. We're there till about 4 o'clock in the morning. The radio is on, and finally they announce the all clear. We take off our masks, come out of the sealed room, and Israel radio is reporting nothing. But this is Israel. You understand? The home of the cell phone. When nobody had cell phones, everybody in Israel had a cell phone. Yeah. So everyone's calling their friends. כן, שלום, דודו, אני פה top secret base, אתה מכיר אותו? כן, כן. So the news spreads pretty fast. 9 missiles hit the greater Tel Aviv area. Over 100 houses were destroyed. Nobody was killed. In that first attack, no one was even injured. You know how they build in Israel? Steel reinforced concrete. When that falls on you, it often hurts. Nobody was injured. It was beyond belief. So we were punch drunk. Went into Erev Shabbos. It was a strange Shabbos. All the Jews had to leave their radios on. All the secular Jews had to stay home for Shabbos. Yeah. There were 3 missile attacks that night. Luckily, I slept through 2 of them. My mother always said I could sleep through a missile attack. Turns out she was right. She also said I could sleep through an earthquake. That was true. When I was in LA, I had an earthquake I slept through. But wake up in the morning and the bookcase is all over. What happened here? Looks like there was an earthquake. Anyway, so we knew we couldn't go on like this. This is too crazy. So Yitzhak Shamir says, we're not going to go on like this. We'll bomb Baghdad ourselves. You guys don't know how to do any bombing. They said, no, don't come in. It'll upset the coalition. We'll give you Patriot missiles. Now, the best thing about a Patriot missile is its name. A Patriot missile, you figure it's like red, white, and blue with a cape. Patriot to the rescue. To fight the ugly Scuzz missile, which is like black with a shark face, and come in. So sure enough, the next day there's another Scud missile attack, and we release the Patriots. Now what the Patriots do is they intercept the missile so that it breaks in half and the warhead falls directly on your house. That's what happened next. There was a house somewhere, I think it was in Ramat Gan, and it landed directly on the house, the building. The entire apartment building was destroyed. Nobody was killed. They didn't believe it. One of the reporters went from apartment to apartment, and everybody was alive. So I was in the bedroom. I went to get the kids. The other one says, I was in the sealed room, and I went to the bedroom to get my wife. The other one says, I was in the kitchen, and I ran to the sealed room. Everybody was like someplace else just when they met. One guy was in the bathroom. He says, I heard the explosion, and I thought I was going to die. And I knew I have to say the Shema. And I didn't know if you could say the Shema in the bathroom. When I looked down, there was no bathroom. Now, how he explains his situation to his rescuers, I don't know. But there was something that went on in the Israeli public after that. They're like, oh my gosh, they can't hit us. I remember hearing Nachman Shai during one of these attacks. He says, Kol Meshugayim b'Tel Aviv, go back inside. People would stand on top of the buildings to watch the Scud missiles. Oh, look, here comes one. Boom! Everybody okay? Yeah, let's go to the next building. Oh, here comes the other one. Boom! Nobody seemed to care. The most dramatic picture was probably the one in Savion. This house collapsed. The guy was buried up to his neck in rubble, which is very hard for an Israeli because he can't talk. Because Israelis need their hands to talk. I'm always amazed when I'm driving. I look at the next place. I can follow the entire conversation. I can't see what he's saying. But his hands and he's talking on the phone. It's not a Zoom call. I don't know what he's doing, who he's talking to this way. And that was it. So they come in with heavy equipment. They move it off. He was okay. His jacket got ripped. He was very angry. So it was just astounding. I heard Yitzhak Rabin interviewed on the radio, and he was not a religious man. And he said, we have to recognize that these are miracles. And then he stopped, he said, and that's me talking. Yeah, it was amazing. It was there's no other way to explain it, right? So they interviewed this one woman. She said, would you say that these are miracles? And she said, no. Things like this happen in Israel all the time. Now, she's right. Okay, I was born in 1959, so I don't remember the 48 war, the 56 war, but I remember the 1967 war. I was in Yeshiva Day School when the war started, and the reports were that Israel was in flames. I mean, Egypt has the largest air force in the Middle East. The Arab Legion was the most powerful army. The Assyrians controlled the Golan Heights. The country was 9 miles wide. How hard is it to beat a country 9 miles wide? And we won. An unbelievable victory. But those first reports, Haifa was in flames, Tel Aviv was in flames, everything. Tremendous destruction. It was an unbelievable miracle. By the way, the Kiruv movement began after the Six-Day War because it reignited Jewish pride. People couldn't believe it. And it was just the most dramatic thing you could imagine. I was once on a bus sitting next to one of the tank commanders who captured the Golan Heights. He said, most of our tanks were so old they couldn't get up to the heights. So I said, anyone whose tank works, come with me. That's how we captured the Golan Heights. An unbelievable miracle. And so what did everyone say? Well, we had the advantage of surprise. We attacked them first. If they would have attacked us first, we wouldn't stand a chance. But as it is, that's why we were able to do it. So I think HaKadosh Baruch Hu was trying to make a point. So, 1973, Yom Kippur, we were totally unprepared, and the Egyptians attack, and the Syrians attack. Now, we had built what was called the Bar-Lev line, which was basically made out of sand, so that you couldn't knock it down because all of the bombs would absorb it. So the Russians gave the Egyptians these powerful hoses, and they just washed away the Bar-Lev line. And they come rushing in. And they had these advanced anti-aircraft missiles, and they were shooting us down left and right. And we were totally unprepared. There was no call-up. Up in the north, the Syrians were coming down through the Golan Heights. Anytime they came to a village, they killed everybody. And they're coming down, to the bridge to Tveria. Now they could go across, just wipe out Tveria. They're in Israel now. And they stop for 2 days until Israel can counterattack. I have read reports from the Americans, the Israelis, and the Syrians. Nobody can explain why they stopped. It didn't make any sense. And so we made a call up. And of course, Ariel Sharon managed to go over the Suez Canal, surround the Egyptian Third Army. We fought back. We got all the way to the outskirts of Damascus, and we managed to win. But it was so close. It turned out later that Golda Meir and her whole cabinet were carrying cyanide pills to commit suicide rather than get captured. That's how bad it was. They were running out of bullets. If Alexander Haig, who was the head of NATO at the time, didn't rush us armaments, he didn't even wait for approval, he just gave us, we would have been wiped out. It was a very difficult time for Israel. But the fact that we won with those conditions, it was for sure a miracle. So, years go by and they say, no, our army is so good that we can give them a 2-day head start and we'll still beat them. So Hashem said, okay, try this. Sit in a room by yourself with a piece of plastic between you and death. I'll shoot missiles at you and nobody will die. Now tell me who won that war. The generals were pacing up and down. Nothing to do. My friend Rabbi Yosef Granovsky, he was in Haga, which is civil defense. He thought it was the funniest thing. He was getting all these benefits for being in the army, and his job was to run the siren. He says, 2 times a year I got to push the siren. On Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaShoah. That's my whole service. Until the Gulf War. The only people called up were the siren people. He had to sleep there in the siren room, waiting for the code. There was nothing. We didn't send any planes, we didn't send any tanks. We just sat there and they shot missiles at us. 39 Scud missiles. And in case you think Scud missiles are a joke, one fell in Saudi Arabia and killed 27 U.S. servicemen. These things are not a joke. It was a miracle. And everybody recognized it was an unbelievable miracle. And you know what happened next. So the entire government became religious, and now Israel is a Torah state. No, that's not what happened. What happened was everybody picked themselves up and went back to their regular lives. But you saw a miracle. You admit you saw a miracle. You told me if I see a miracle that I don't know there's a God. Not true, is it? And that's the sad reality. Doesn't matter how many miracles that a person sees, it doesn't change your life. It might get your attention, but it doesn't change your life. So what do people really want? They want to know if there's a God. So, story in Navi. Yoshua put a curse on anybody who rebuilds Yericho. And this guy says, I'm not afraid of the curse. And he lays the foundation of a new city, and his first son dies. And he starts to build, and his next son dies. And finally, when he puts up the city gates, his 10th son dies. So Eliyahu Hanavi goes to pay a shiva call. And Achav, the king, is there too. And Eliyahu said, why would you do this? You see your children are dying. Why would you keep doing it? And Achav says, don't listen to him. You worried about the curse of the Talmud? What about the curse of the Rebbe? Moshe Rabbeinu said, if you bring in Avodah Zarah, there won't be any rain. I brought in lots of Avodah Zarah, and there's plenty of rain. So Eliyahu Hanavi, the Kanoi, says, ooh, Hashem, give me the keys to Shemayim. No rain until I say so. 3 years drought. They didn't have any water purification systems. There was no water. That means they couldn't grow any food. That means that people were dying, animals were dying, everything was drying up. And Eliyahu hid. And Achav is searching all around for him. Can't find him. And finally Hashem comes to him and says, okay, 3 years, that's enough. Go to Achav. So he shows up, and Achav has a good guy who's working for him, Avadia. And he says, I don't believe it, Eliyahu, how could that be you? We searched for you everywhere in the whole world. He says, yeah, well, I was hiding. Yeah. So he says, well, what happens now? He says, go tell Achav I want to see him. He says, no, I know how you work. You're going to tell me to go get Achav. I'll bring Achav. In the meantime, you'll disappear in a chariot or something up into Shemayim, and I'll be left here holding the bag. What do you want to get me killed for? He says, I promise you I'm going to stay here. So Achav comes and he sees Eliyahu. He says, you murderer of Israel. He says, me, you're the one who brought in the Avodah Zarah. He says, you're the one who brought the famine. You're the one, you know what? Forget it. Let's have this out once and for all, me and you. Tomorrow, Har Carmel, be there. So the whole Jewish people assemble, Har Carmel, and all the priests of Baal are there. And Eliyahu Hanavi says, I'm here by myself representing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And they set up a deal. Whoever can bring the fire down from Shemayim wins. So they took 2 animals, and they built 2 bumas, and the Baal, priest of Baal won the coin toss. They went first. Yep. They bring the korban, and they're waiting for the fire to come down. And they start chanting. And Eliyahu says, he might be sleeping. Try it louder. Think he's sleeping? Okay. He might be in the bathroom. Maybe give him a couple of minutes. You know what I mean? He might have a magazine. You think so? Okay. We'll wait a little bit. Okay. They start cutting themselves. He says, I like that part. Do that more. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, comes noontime, no fire. They say, okay, we couldn't do it. And he turns to the Jewish people and he says, how long are you going to straddle the fence? If God is God, believe in God. If Baal is God, believe in Baal. But don't be Jews for Baal. Make a choice. And he says, Hashem, answer your people. And the fire comes down and burns everything up. And all the people throw themselves on the ground. They say, Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim. And that's it. So you can imagine that was a really bad time to be a priest for Baal. They killed them all. And Eliyahu said, come on, you better run home, Achav, because it's going to start raining. And sure enough, the rain comes. And that is what we call a happy ending. And like every happy ending in Judaism, it lasts about a day. Because that day, Izebel, when she hears what happens, sends the captain of the guard to Eliyahu to tell him, this time tomorrow, I'm going to put you to death. As we say in Hebrew, bluffer, you can't kill me. Look at all the people. I made this tremendous miracle. They're all on my side. But that's not what Eliyahu says. He runs into the midbar and he throws himself on the ground and he lies there. And Hashem says, what's the matter, Eliyahu? He says, your people have sinned. There's no more hope. I want to die. Strange reaction. He says, okay, come with me. All right? Takes him to Har Sinai. Puts him in the little cave that Moshe was. And there comes a wind, there comes a fire, there comes a noise. And then comes a small voice. Call it Daka. Little voice. And it says, what do you want, Eliyahu? And Eliyahu says the same thing. People have sinned, there's no more hope. But obviously Hashem was trying to make a point here. Why was Eliyahu responding this way? Because Izebel sent the captain of the guard and said, good show, Eliyahu. Terrific. Terrific. The fire from heaven, the jokes, terrific. I can't touch you now, not until the power of your miracle wears off. I give it 24 hours. And this time tomorrow I could kill you and nobody would care. And he says, she's right. That's it. I give up. I did my best show. I quit. I give up. So Hashem says, come with me. See the big noise? See the big fire? See the big wind? That's not where you find a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kol Damamadaka, the small, quiet voice. But Eliyahu didn't get the message. He says, okay, you're fired. Take the next chariot to heaven, and Elisha's going to take over. And I'm going to keep you around. You're not going to die. You want to die, you're not going to die. You're going to do three things. You're going to go to every Pesach Seder. You're going to go to every Bris Milah. And you're going to announce the coming of Mashiach. There's only two mitzvahs that the majority of Jews still keep. The Pesach Seder and Bris Milah. I mean, the overwhelming majority of Jews. In Israel, it's something like 98, 99%. See these people you gave up hope on, Eliyahu? Here they are 2,500 years later, and they're still here. And you're going to come back and eat a big piece of humble pie when you see Mashiach come on these people you gave up hope on. Because miracles don't convince anybody. Big presentations don't convince anybody. Kol Damama Daka. I got to tell you, you know this yourself. When you listen to the stories that were said so far over the convention of people like you who were inspired to reach out to the people who were touched by Project Inspire. They were ordinary people. They weren't Kiruv professionals. They were people who met somebody and took an interest in them and came up with a real clever approach. Come with me to shul. Let's learn Parsha. Wow, what innovative programming. How'd you come up with that one? Because it's the Kol Damamadaka that makes the change. We don't believe it. We think we need some big presentation, some big show, some big video. No. We need one person to care about another person and go over to them and invite them over for a Shabbos meal. Take them to shul. Yeah, I know a fellow, he was after this one particular family and they wouldn't come to him for Shabbos. So finally he said, you know what? I'll go to you for Shabbos. He says, we don't keep Shabbos. He says, that's okay. They packed everything up and they brought their food. They lit their candles. They sang their Zmiras. The family was doing whatever they were doing. They couldn't help themselves. They got sucked into it. So I'll bring it to you. We deliver, ever since Corona. You know what I mean? I'll bring the Shabbos to you. We were able to turn it around. Kol Damamadaka. All the loud noises, all the shows, all the power can't stand up to one person quietly speaking to another person to influence them. Louis XIV, the Catholic king, asked the mathematician philosopher Pascal, said, I want to see a miracle. He says, well, Yashka walked on water. He said, no, I want something I can see today. He said, the Jews. There's no reason we should still be here. It's a miracle. You know why we're here? Kol Damamadaka. It's that constant thing. And all of the heterodox organizations can't figure out what it is. Why orthodoxy keeps growing and growing and growing, and their movements are shrinking. And the answer is because 3 days a year with a big show is not going to do it. It's every single day. Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv. It's every single Shabbos. And between me and you, not everybody's Shabbos is the most inspiring. Not everybody's davening is the most inspiring. But it's constant. They did studies in the 1980s because there was this theory of quality time. It's okay if parents don't spend too much time with their kids. Just, spend an hour of quality time. And they found that it's not true. It's quantity time. A kid would rather spend a lot of time with a parent who's not entertaining them than spend an hour. Kol Damamadaka, the constant voice. My friends, nothing is going to convince people with big miracles and big shows. It's going to be you reaching out to another person with that small, quiet voice that Amir Hashem will change the situation in Klal Yisrael and finally bring back our friend Eliyahu to do his final job and announce Mashiach's arrival. Thank you very much.